looks pretty cool.
Classic Industries provided the Challenger with some more parts once again. Now this is a rear valance panel, or valance, however you want to say it.
So last week you listened to me rant and rave about how I didn't want to paint the car. This week we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to paint it. We're just going to go backwards. So whenever I got a little closer to the car, I noticed that there was a lot of different mix-match colors and a lot of different things that didn't add up. When I got really close, I noticed that there was some very shiny paint underneath the top layer of the paint that was on it. And the paint that was on top felt like sandpaper. So what's happening is that car had been repainted at some point. It was not the factory paint that's on that car right now. But what I figured out was if I wet sand a lot of those spots, then I'm realizing that about 85% of the original paint is still on that car. Because back in the day, what happened is they would do like a really quick and cheap repair, because there weren't patch panels back in the day. And that's probably what happens is somebody repainted the car, and instead of like sanding all the paint off, they just painted over the top of it. Which is a good thing, because that top layer of paint that they added onto it actually protects the bottom layer. Now we're able to go back and reveal all of that original paint that's been hiding for so many years. It's a good and bad thing. It's very tedious, it's very time consuming, but we'll have a very nice finished product and bring back a lot of that original shine that the Challenger had from the beginning. So to make this project happen, we're going to go through a few different stages of sanding this paint down. So we'll start out with 600 grit here. And this is to kind of get like the basic top level down, and because you'll be able to hear the sound of the paint, that at least in this case you can hear it. So we want to get that down to where we can't hear it basically anymore, and we start to see the factory paint come through. We'll start to see it bleed through as we go. Once we start seeing that, we want to go to the 800 because it's not as aggressive and we won't burn through the paint as easily. So we got to start being very careful when we start seeing the factory paint shine through. And then when we get it very smooth and get those very small spots in, then we'll move to the 1000 grit to kind of finalize all the little spots and be a little bit more tedious, and really work around the body lines too, because we want to be careful not to, on the body lines like this right here, we want to make sure that we don't burn right through that, because that's the easiest spot to do. I can guarantee it that if you're just starting out, you're gonna burn through that. So, and this I stuck with going with maybe like a 2000 or 2500 on very light spots, and then you can go over this for like the final polish if you want, before you do the before you actually go with an actual buffing wheel or polish or anything like that. You could go up to like a 2000 or 2500 grit, whatever you want to do, and that really will get all those really deep scratches out and get you a nice foundation to buff the rest of the car and bring back the finalized shine. So those are the steps that we're going to go with, and we're going to start with the 600 grit. Now, a little side note, I have had to use 400 grit in some places where the paint was very, very aggressively bad. So I only use the 400 sparingly, and I use it lightly. In just a short amount of time, we've been able to cover that bottom section here good portion of the quarter panel and then going up over the pillar. Now you can see that one thing you need to realize, if you're going to do the exact same thing I'm doing, your results are obviously going to vary, and you're not always guaranteed that the paint is going to be perfect under what you take off. So as you can see right here, looks like where, and I can feel it, this is where the two panels meet. This is where the quarter panel meets the roof skin. And the factory just kind of finished it off, hardly at all. I mean, they filled it with lead, smoothed it out, and then painted over it. And then I don't want to sand down on this anymore because that's bare metal right there. I don't want to go any further than that, but I can probably get a little bit more of this primer out right here and in these smaller sections. But overall, it looks way better than this primer that was up here. So you can hear the difference just in the primer alone. You can hear that versus absolutely hardly anything over here on the good side. And you'll notice still some light scratches. I did actually get some rubbing compound in this section right here. You can see it's got a really nice reflection, but I will need to hit it with some 1000 grit first. I only hit this with 600 to really kind of take care of the light stuff, and I'll go back with 1000 grit to kind of get those really fine scratches out, and then go back and hit it with rubbing compound. You can see a lot of it is still covered in scratches because a lot of it has yet to be gone back with rubbing compound. I did go over this for the most part with 1000 grit, and even with that small polish, you can see that it does have a lot of the reflection come back, a lot of that shine, but we'll have to go back and really hit it with some of that rubbing compound, like I said. That'll bring back that really the deep luster to the paint and get rid of those really fine scratches, because you can't feel these, you can just see them. So if you listen, I mean, you can't even hear my fingers rubbing across the paint. That's how smooth it is, and it feels just as smooth as like a new car paint job. Lots of water, and I can probably say that's going to be what is going to help you out too. Keep a lot of water, because you don't want to burn through your original paint. And what I used here, I start out with some 600 grit. One thing to note, this is not a race. You're not trying to sand off as fast as possible. You want to make sure that you're applying pressure evenly, and make sure that you're not applying too much at one time, because if you do, then you're very likely going to burn down to bare metal right through your original paint. So you got to be careful, and it takes some practice, but you'll eventually get it. So I like to start with just a back and forth motion. You can already see that you can see that color coming off. And what I do is I like to do a cross hatch motion and go back and forth in the opposite direction. And when you start to feel the paper start to grip, that's whenever I add more water. If it starts to get stuck, add a little bit more water to the thing. You see all that color coming right off. And see, in just that short amount of time, we've already been able to burn through this top layer and get it removed. You just work slowly and slowly. And I like to use my hand because I can apply pressure evenly. Now you can use a sanding block, but I just found it easier to do it like this because I can tell where I'm applying pressure, how much pressure I'm applying, and I can contour to the body line and the shape of the car rather than having a flat surface to use. So that's kind of personal preference, but do what works best for you. Now that we get a nice little spot starting to work through, this is when I like to switch to either 800 or 1000, just depending on how much is left. I've still got a little texture here, so I'm going to stick with 800 right now. And again, just use that same technique, not very heavy. You just want to be easy with it and not try to get carried away with how much pressure you're applying. And now to get the remaining little bits that are light, I will switch to 1000 grit. And that'll get those very fine spots that are very thin, because if you use the whole thing, you're very likely able to burn through paint in places you don't realize that you're actually sanding on. So as of right now, let's take a look at how that side used to look. So you can see we had a lot of texture, a lot of paint that had buckled up and was cracking and peeling. Okay, then we came over here, and you can really see all the, it's kind of dull, it's all mixed matched and everything. When we come over to this side, that's almost complete. Check out the shine. You can really see a reflection coming back out of that original paint. So if you look real closely, it might be hard to see on camera, but look at that. That reflection came back. Looking really pretty. Now we do have to go back and buff it. I mentioned that before. So all this stuff has yet to be, you know, buffed and all that good stuff to get all the really light scratches out of it. You can see there's still some work left to be done, like right here. Still have to finish this part of the primer, lower part of the fender, then down low on the car. That part is the worst, the absolute worst to get down to, because I'm laying on the ground in the water having to do all that stuff. So it'd be nice to jack the car up possibly to get those really low spots. But I just wanted to show you, you know, just a little bit of time and effort, you can do the exact same thing. Now, you know, doing the entire car was a whole lot. I've only done half of it at this point. There's still a whole lot more to go, but I just wanted to show you guys what's achievable and what's doable. And you know, we'll finish the rest of this up as we go, but it's so time consuming and I need to get other stuff done to the car that, you know, we'll just do a little bit at a time throughout the rest of the series. But I do want to give you guys a point to notice that, hey, this is going to be done, and we will for sure do a finalized video in the future. But I wanted to get you guys just the idea of what's going to happen with the car and move on to some other things, because we've got a lot, and I mean a lot, of really good parts coming in. So again, just to give you one more look, check out the paint. It's not very shiny at all, and even on this side, look here, you can see where there's original paint coming through. So you can kind of see that reflection right there. See, this is old paint, or this is like the repaint right here, and that's original. Hear the difference? That's what I'm trying to wet sand down to. So you can see there's a goal, but it just gets very tedious, especially when you get like around spots like this. That's where it gets really difficult to bring back the paint, because it's very thin in the places it's burned off. But again, you know, you can make it happen. And like I mentioned, and you know that we don't intend for the paint to be perfect, but we do intend for that original shine to come back. And that's the goal. We want to be able to show, hey, you know, this is original paint, and for just a few packs of sandpaper, some water, and some time, we're able to bring back a lot of that original paint shine. And that's the best part about it, you know. All that's factory right there. I have not painted anything on this car whatsoever, and I haven't even buffed it yet, like I mentioned. So I mean, it gets better from here, I promise. Only can get better. So we still got a lot of work to do, but I'm very proud of what we've done in the past 2 weeks. Yeah, it took 2 weeks to do that side. Give it another 3, we'll be done. But I like the way that it looked. I like the way it came out. I think that everything worked a heck of a lot better than it did. I'm very surprised that all that paint was under there. So, hey, can't complain, right? Free paint job. And that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like down below. If you have a question for me, feel free to leave a comment. Order your t-shirts and your stickers. And I appreciate you guys really just sticking around for the Challenger and seeing some, like, kind of an oddball little project that had just popped in my head. I really wanted to see how it would look. And I'm honestly surprised about how that car looks. You know, with a little bit of elbow grease, we've got a lot of progress that came out of it. And we still have a long ways to go. We've only done half the car. But you get the idea and you get the purpose, and it's something that you can do at home for just the price of a couple packs of sandpaper and a lot of water and just a little bit of time. But it's something that you can do as well. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one.